It's funny, the turning radius, or the turning diameter, I should say, on this vehicle without the four-wheel steering is like 42 feet. It's like a truck or something. But when you have the four-wheel steering, it doesn't have it on the specifications, but man, you can turn around so much easier in just a much tighter spot. That four-wheel steering just makes it so much easier for turning around, but also just let's say you need to back up into a parking spot. You can just kind of whip in there a lot better, you know. It just gives you that maneuverability with the four-wheel steering that it feels like the back end is kind of kicking out slightly, you know, kind of helping you make that turn. But yeah, really enjoy driving vehicles with four-wheel steering when you're in tight spots and stuff. And you can kind of tell, you know, like the first time I drove one with a vehicle with four-wheel steering, I was like, whoa, there's something weird going on when I do a sharp turn, you know. It just kind of felt a little off, you know. But yeah, it's really good. The very first thing I noticed when driving this vehicle was how smooth the ride quality was. That air suspension does a great job of just kind of gliding over bumps and smoothing everything out. Of course, there's going to be some, you know, motion and everything, depending on the road, but it's able to handle it so well that it just feels like it's just floating on air. I guess the air suspension apparently is, but it feels really good. It's also very quiet, very, very quiet. They did a good job of sound isolation, both from the road noise, the engine noise, but also external noises in general. So we had the laminated glass here on the side, and just everything just feels solid and well insulated and isolated. So it's very quiet, you know. Now there's a little bit of a learning curve as far as some of the controls, like the cruise control, little extra stock down there. It's a little bit retro, a little bit, you know, I'd had to get used to it again. But yeah, it's fine. Once you get used to it, it's not a big deal. But it does a good job it has like a lane keep assist system with the adaptive cruise control. It has the dual sensors up there. And so the lane keep assist system doesn't annoy you and bug you, you know, like some vehicles. It does hold the lane well, but it also has a grip sensor. So it can tell when you're touching the steering wheel. It doesn't rely on a torque sensor, so you're not constantly having to move the steering wheel. You just gently put your hand on the steering wheel, and it already knows your hand's there. So there's no fighting with that. Some vehicles, you know, it relies on a torque sensor, and you're constantly having to jiggle the steering wheel or move the steering wheel in some way to avoid alerts. This one doesn't have that problem. As long as your hand's on the steering wheel, it knows it's there and it leaves you alone. So that's very, very nice. So this is a fairly heavy vehicle, but it handles the curves, and just overall handling is really good. It stays flat. You don't feel like you're doing any kind of, you know, rolling in the corners and turns and stuff. So the curves, now these aren't very sharp curves, but you know what I'm saying? It still feels flat, and it feels solid and connected. And so yeah, once again, the suspension system handles all that great. So just put it in dynamic mode here, which is like the sport mode, and accelerate. Yeah, feels really good. It has adequate acceleration for this type of vehicle. And the front end does lift up. And so it's a good thing it has the auto leveling headlights that help push those headlights down. And we're going to see that in the night video. But yeah, it has adequate acceleration for a vehicle like this. I mean, you're not like, you know, you don't want to put your family in here and everything and be like breaking necks going so fast. So it has adequate acceleration. It feels good. And this is the V6. So yeah, good amount of power and decent enough efficiency as far as the fuel economy for what it is. And when you put it in comfort mode, it's going to make that suspension system even more comfortable. So it's able to, you know, give a little bit of a cushy, floaty ride in the comfort mode. So yeah, the drive modes are easy to get to, and they work well. You know, it's not a huge difference between the dynamic, you know, sport mode and regular modes as far as acceleration. It's not like massive or anything. But since it's not just the transmission that is adjusting, it's actually adjusting the, you know, the steering feel and also the suspension and stuff like that. There is some uses in the drive modes here. and there's quite a few of them, including an individual mode as well. Now, since this is an all-wheel drive vehicle, it also has an off-road mode, so that could come in handy. This isn't the type of vehicle I would take off-roading, but if there's a situation in which I might need that, that's good to have it. Just kind of like let the vehicle know that you are in a situation where you might need some more traction, or be a situation where slippery surfaces might happen. Just normal acceleration there in comfort mode feels good. It feels like it's connected. The transmission does a nice step acceleration and feels very controlled and smooth. Keeps you just kind of smooths out that acceleration. And I like the way you can have the navigation map, which is basically a satellite view on both the screen in front of you, the gauges, and also over here. I would say the one in front of you with the gauges is more useful, especially if you have a destination set, than the one over here, because it's actually larger and you can see it better. This one sometimes has a little bit of glare, it's a little bit smaller. It's fine to have a separate view there, but I would have it, if I had a destination set and I really needed to focus on it, having it right there in front of you is excellent. You're not going to be able to tell on camera, but the sound system is really good. And it plays a variety of different music well, including voice. Like if you're listening to podcasts and stuff, it really has a fat sound and fills up the entire vehicle. The subwoofer helps out a lot. Now, it is useful to go in and adjust the sound settings depending on what type of music you play. I noticed that, like I'll have one type of music and then I'll switch to another, and then it doesn't sound quite right, but I adjust the settings and then it really makes it sound really good. So very important to take that in consideration, because when I first got in the vehicle, it didn't sound all that great, and I was like, this is a high-end system, why isn't it sounding good? And it's just because the settings weren't appropriate for the music I was playing. But yeah, it sounds really good.